My mother always said she was protecting me. Her rules were never called rules. They were truths, warnings, the way life works. People are dangerous if you trust them too much. Good girls don't make mistakes in public. Never let anyone see you weak. They will use it against you. If something feels too nice, be careful. Nice things always have a price. I grew up believing her. Why wouldn't I? She sounded so certain, so tired, like someone who had already paid that price for both of us. She would look at me with those sharp, worried eyes and say, "I know this world. You don't. Just listen to me and you'll be safe." I wasn't allowed to sleep over at friends' houses. I wasn't allowed to walk home alone, even in daylight. If a boy looked at me for too long, she noticed before I did. Her hand would tighten around mine and she'd whisper, "Don't smile back. You don't know what he wants." When I cried, she didn't hug me. She corrected me. "Don't be dramatic. We don't make scenes. We stay in control." So I learned to measure every word, every move, every feeling. I thought that was what being careful meant. I thought that was what being loved looked like. I never questioned it. Not then. To me, my mother's fear wasn't fear. It was reality. And her voice became the map I used for a world I had never actually seen on my own. Growing up, I thought other families lived like we did. I thought every child checked the windows twice before bed because danger doesn't knock, it slips in. I thought every daughter warned her friends, "Don't run, don't shout. My mom says it's unsafe." My mother had a lesson for everything. If someone canceled plans, she said, "See, people disappoint you." If I brought home a good grade, she replied, "Next time it won't be this high. Don't get comfortable." If I laughed too loudly, she'd whisper, "Quiet. Happiness attracts jealousy." I didn't notice how small I was becoming, how carefully I moved, how often I apologized. It felt normal to shrink myself to fit her fears. It felt natural to live inside her warnings. I didn't know there was another way to grow up. I didn't know safety could feel gentle instead of heavy. I didn't know love could breathe. When I left home for university, I thought things would change. New city, new people, new life. But my mother's voice traveled with me. Before every exam, I heard, "Don't celebrate too soon. Good things slip away." Before every new friend, "Be careful. People are kind until they want something." I checked my phone constantly, terrified I'd missed one of her messages. If I didn't reply fast enough, she'd send, "Is something wrong? Why are you avoiding me?" And guilt would wrap around my chest like a rope. I avoided parties, turned down invitations, kept my head low in class. Not because I wanted to, but because it felt safer to live the way she taught me. Even miles away from home, I still lived inside her rules. Her fears didn't fade. They echoed. And I started to wonder if I even knew who I was without her voice telling me how to live. When I got married, everyone said my life would finally become mine. But the truth is, I carried my mother into that home too. Not physically, but in every rule she planted in me. On our first week together, my husband asked, "Why do you ask permission to take a shower?" I froze. I didn't know how to explain that I wasn't asking permission. I was asking not to upset anyone. If he came home late, I panicked. Not because he did something wrong, but because my mother always said, "Men leave when you get too comfortable." Even when he hugged me, my shoulders stayed tense. I waited to be judged, corrected, warned. My husband tried to reassure me. But he soon realized he wasn't just loving me. He was fighting the shadows of someone else's rules. And I still believed every single one of them. Because I had never learned how to live without my mother's fear shaping every step I took. After a while, the cracks became impossible to ignore. I started waking up tired, my chest heavy before the day even began. At work, I apologized for things I didn't do. At home, I tiptoed around my own life like I didn't belong in it. My mother called every morning, not to ask how I was, but to remind me what could go wrong. Don't trust your coworkers. Don't let your husband get too comfortable. Don't forget, people turn cruel when you least expect it. I carried her warnings like stones in my pockets. Every step felt heavier. Every decision felt risky. One night, I burned dinner by accident. A small mistake, but I froze like a child expecting punishment. My husband touched my shoulder gently and said, "It's okay." But I couldn't breathe. Because in my mother's world, mistakes were never okay. And for the first time, I wondered if her world was the only one I was allowed to live in. It happened while I was folding laundry. Out of nowhere, a picture flashed in my mind. A young woman crying in a bathroom, her hands shaking, her face pale, terrified. I didn't know who she was, but something about her felt familiar, as if I had seen that fear before, just not in my own eyes. The image disappeared almost immediately, like a dream slipping away when you try too hard to remember. But it left a coldness in my stomach I couldn't shake. That night, I asked my mother if she had ever been hurt by someone. Her whole body stiffened. She changed the subject so fast it felt rehearsed. "Why are you asking such things? Be careful what you think about. Some memories should stay buried." Her tone was sharp, too sharp, almost frightened. And for the first time in my life, I realized my mother wasn't just strict or protective. She was hiding something old, something painful, something she didn't want me to see. My husband was the first person to say it out loud. "You're not okay," he whispered one night after I jumped just because he closed a drawer too quickly. I told him I was fine. I always said I was fine, but he didn't believe me this time. He looked at me the way you look at someone carrying a weight they don't realize is crushing them. "You're scared of things that aren't happening," he said gently, "and every choice you make isn't yours. It sounds like someone else is living in your head." His words stung because they were true. My reactions weren't mine. My fears weren't mine. Even my voice didn't feel like mine anymore. When he suggested therapy, my first instinct was panic, the same panic I felt whenever I questioned my mother. A voice inside me whispered, "Don't dig, don't ask, don't break the rules." But another part of me, the small part that still believed I deserved a life of my own, whispered something softer. "What if nothing is wrong with you? What if something was done to you?" And for the first time, I agreed to seek help. The therapist didn't ask many questions at first. She listened, really listened, while I told her about my mother's rules, her warnings, her constant fear. I expected her to say I was overreacting. She didn't. Instead, she asked softly, "Did your mother ever tell you what happened to her when she was young?" Something sank in my stomach. I shook my head. The therapist leaned forward. "Then the rules you lived by weren't about protecting you. They were about protecting her." A silence filled the room. Not the heavy silence I grew up in, but one that opened instead of closed. She explained how trauma can twist love, how fear can become a parenting style, how a wounded parent can raise a child inside the shape of their old pain. In that moment, the blurry memory returned. The young woman crying in the bathroom, the fear in her eyes. My mother. Not a monster, not a villain, just someone who never healed. My whole life flashed differently. I wasn't weak. I wasn't broken. I was raised inside someone else's disaster and taught to call it safety. The therapist smiled gently. You're allowed to live a life that isn't built from your mother's fear. And for the first time, I believed her. For the first time, the silence in me began to crack open, and I heard my own voice.